Hey, thanks so much for watching our last video. We really wanted to say thank you for the comments and just for making us feel welcome overall. We really appreciate it. It's not easy to step outside of the anonymity of having a screen name and put your face and your story out there, but we really appreciate the welcome that we've received.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm Jake, and this is Stephanie. So this is our second video, and we hope our story can help no matter what stage of someone might be of escaping the JWs. And at this point, we're not going to get really into any type of deep witness doctrinal issues or what we believe. But of course, a really good website is JW Facts. That's our favorite, quote apostate website. So check it out, definitely. Yeah. And we're going to go in. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it answered a lot of our questions. I'm sure it can help you with any of yours, too.
Mm-hmm. And we were going to go chronological order of this process of waking up to the truth about the truth. And I'll start. When I was 19, I had some questions and doubts regarding the flip-flops. And specifically, the light getting brighter didn't really bother me so much. It was that if someone got disciplined or disfellowshipped or reproved for something that, like the society came out and said, you can't do alternative military service. And then if you went against that, you were reproved or disfellowshipped. Or if you went with it, you were even put in prison in some lands. That once that changed, I thought to myself, okay, well, how is that true justice? Like, did Jehovah just change his mind, or did people, is the society going to reverse the disfellowshipping or issue an apology?
Do they get a pardon of some sort?
Yeah, so that just stood out in my mind as kind of a problem, but I just kind of put it on the back burner. I was 19 and very impressionable, and I just figured, Jehovah would clear everything up. But I never really wanted to go to Bethel, or I never really had much of a positive outlook on the term organization. I just kind of viewed it as like this mirror of the first century Christian congregation, but little did I know that was completely wrong. How about you, Steph?
I never questioned the organization. I mean, if they said something, then I took that as being what Jehovah wanted us to think at the time. Even I remember you bringing up that flip-flop of if someone gets disciplined and then later it becomes okay. I remember you asking me about that when we were first married. And I remember what I told you. I told you, well, in that case, if they didn't go along with what the organization says and if they pushed their own opinion, then that means that they weren't humble and they shouldn't have been in the organization anyway. Mm-hmm. Sorry. But anyway, if somebody ever said something that sounded wrong, I just chalked that up to that's that elder's opinion, or that's just what that CO thinks, and Jehovah or the governing body would never say something like that. Mm-hmm. Let's see, we married after we were dating for a year. There was a lot of stuff that happened right around the time of our wedding. We'll go around, maybe talk about that at another time. But eventually we got married in 2006. And I remember even when we were dating, maybe we were engaged. We went to Barnes & Noble one time, and I had picked up a book that was written by an ex-witness. And Jake kind of took it from me and was like, "Oh, why are you even looking at that book? You shouldn't look at that." But so even at that stage, even though I never questioned the organization and I thought they were right, I was still curious as to what ex-witnesses said and why they would leave. I thought the only people that ever left were people that were kicked out.
Yeah, it's interesting to think, looking back on that, because that was about 10 years ago when we were first married. What could have come from that if I wouldn't have been like, "Oh, don't read that." So yeah.
I forgive you.
2 years into our marriage, my parents were divorced and both disfellowshipped. And that was traumatic on a spiritual and personal level. And it was very confusing, too, because this is where you really, the rubber meets the road, you could say, into shunning. So what I mean by that is, this is when you see what comes from the organization and what the congregation actually preaches. So there was a lot of pressure, to shun my parents and
Keep
them at arm's distance, but then...
Well, that's what the articles all say. If they don't live at home, then you shouldn't even be talking to them. Limit your contact, is what it says. To family matters, if there's family business. But no, nothing social.
Yeah, it's very strict and very black and white. But then in the congregation, elders would be like, oh, how's your mom and dad? Or one elder would say, oh, I saw your dad at the gym and we were talking. And it was like night and day what was being said from the magazines and like the circuit overseer versus what was actually happening. So it was almost like everybody knew shunning was wrong, but they didn't.
They didn't go along with it. And yet we were kind of torn, like, well, the articles say one thing, but now you're telling us that we should be talking to them. Like, it was just really confusing.
Yeah, like that's the faithful and discreet slave talking. They're telling us to shun them, so that's like what we're supposed to do. Yeah, and then 3 years later, we had our first baby girl in 2009.
And I had her at a birth center. Everything went really well. No complications throughout the pregnancy or delivery. It was great. Everything went fine.
Yeah.